All right, so today is our last in our series this semester of our Lex Advance, and today we're going to be talking about the awards. And just like as always, if you use Twitter or you do tweet, I do invite you to join the conversation about educational technology. You can use the hashtag EdTech. Make sure you tag at ZulaCat, and you can also tag Learn Everywhere Zula. Um, so with this workshop, we're talking about ways that you can gamify, or this idea of gamification. And if you haven't really thought about it, a lot of things are being gamified. For example, we've got Humana with the Goal 365. And so they want to encourage certain behaviors, and they're offering us rewards for doing so. An example of something that was gamified was here in Sweden when they decided to add some gamification to a speed camera. And so basically what happened is they set up a speed camera, and if you were speeding, you had to pay a fine. So they're capturing your license plate. If you passed through and you were not, you were doing the speed limit or under, then you were actually entered into the lottery. And they were able to pay the lottery winnings from the fines that they were collecting. So they're trying to encourage people not to speed. So, like I said, all kinds of things are being gamified. And that's no different for education as well. And so in Brightspace, we have the awards tool. And the awards tool allows instructors to offer students or issue to students merit-based awards. And they can be in the form of badges and also certificates. And with the badges, it's nothing more than a digital marker, and it represents some sort of accomplishment that the instructor has identified. And so in our Learn Everywhere Zula course, you realize that you all were given various badges for doing various things. And for the Lex Advance, this happens to be the series of badges that you could possibly earn in the Lex Advance course. For doing Lex Advance. There were some other badges that you earned for just doing the initial Lex course. And then we added these other badges for doing Lex Advanced. In the certificate in Brightspace, it's similar to a badge. However, what happens is you can, a PDF is what is included. So basically a certificate is generated. And that certificate is some sort of indication of an official statement of some certification. So you can do certificates with the awards tool as well. And right now I am going to stop my sharing so we can turn it over to Jay. And he'll see some awards tool in action. Okay.
And I was also going to say that if you're still logged into Brightspace, if you kept that window open, you probably by now have received a new award, the Bright Ideas Award, which is a little light bulb. And we set that up to reward you for completing that survey that we just asked you to complete for us. So you all now have one more badge than many of your other colleagues do. So. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And you can actually see here, this is kind of us kind of keeping track of who's gotten awards, what awards people have gotten in Brightspace. I'm going to show you what my class looks like as well. But as Janice says, all of you who went through that LexBet course this summer have already experienced the awards process. And if you've been attending these workshops, you've received other awards from us as well. Now, awards are very closely tied to this idea of gamification, and we did a workshop on that. I guess it was almost last year before everything changed, right? So I don't even really remember when we did it, but I know we did one. And gamification, it can be a pretty big process, right? Some of you have heard me talk about some of the stuff I've done with my grammar class to gamify it, to make it more engaging, to give the students some extra motivation to participate in different ways. And I do it a lot in my class because I find it's a class that a lot of the students come into thinking they're not going to have to do a lot of studying for, right? And then it is a class where they have to do a whole lot of studying, right? They have to read, they have to practice, right? And so I've set it up so that they get rewarded for doing that work that they really should be doing on their own, but they're often not doing on their own, right? But in today's workshop, we're really just going to focus on primarily on how to use the awards themselves, right? As opposed to kind of really talking about how gamification itself works. If you're interested more in the gamification concept, we can address that later on. But we're really just going to focus on how awards themselves actually do work. So I didn't want to overwhelm you because, like I said, my grammar class is heavily gamified. And so there's a whole lot going on. And I don't want you to feel like you have to do all of that to take advantage of these awards, right? So how pretty simple they are to set up as just little rewards for your students. So anyway, here's my grammar class, right? I'm going to go over the way you can kind of deal with the awards in Brightspace. It's under activities, which is not maybe the most logical place for it, but that's where we've got it. So you're going to go to activities, you're going to go to awards, right? And then you can see here, this is my class list from my grammar class. And I can see which awards my students have achieved, right? And obviously, these make sense to me, right? I'm the one who created them, so I can kind of see them real quickly and I know what these are, right? When you come to the awards page, you're going to see your class list for your class, right? Even if you haven't awarded anything, right? But you can also click over here to course awards. And this is where you're actually going to get a list of the awards you've got within your class. And they're pretty easy to set up. We'll go through that process in a few minutes here, right? But you can see, there's a design element to it. There's as Janice pointed out in that email she sent you all, there's what's underlying it all is really that idea of release conditions, right? So the awards tool in Brightspace is really just built on top of that release conditions system that they've got, right? And it uses the exact same concepts. It uses the exact same options and functions and things like that for releasing the awards. But there's two ways to give awards in Brightspace. You can either set it up to happen automatically in response to some condition, right? Either the student doing something or the student not doing something, or the student achieving a certain level, whether it's a score or a rubric marking or something like that, right? You can see there's all sorts of different options you can do, or you can just award an award, a badge manually, right? You can just select a student, right? So I could just come here and I could just click on Cleo's name and I could issue her an award, one of the awards I've got set up in here, right? So you can see here, some of these awards are set up where you see it says conditions. That tells you if it says conditions 0, that means it's not connected to any release condition trigger, right? So it's going to be a manually awarded, right? So the first time visitor award, right? I give that to students after they come to my office hour for the first time, right? And so obviously I can't have that set as a trigger in Brightspace. It'd be nice if I could, but I haven't figured out a way to do that yet, right? That gets a little too complicated. But so after they leave, after they come in for a meeting during my office hours, right? I just come in here and I'll click next to their name and I'll award them that award, right? So that's one real easy way to get started with awards, right? Is just to award them manually. I've got a few others down here. This helper award, right? I do this in my class just for students who kind of in the middle of class, are particularly just helpful. They do something that's really kind of significantly helpful to me, right? And so then after class, I'll just go and I'll give them that award, right? Just as a little thank you, right? I say thank you in class, but I also come back and do this as well. And that's really just kind of a little bit of a recognition. Hey, you did something good, right? It's like Janice says, it's just rewarding them for the kind of behavior we want to see from them, right? What else did I have down here? I call it the friendly type, but I give this to students if they have a profile picture in Brightspace, right? Because I think, as most of you know, a lot of our students don't set that up, right? Because it's not manually done. It's not connected to their ID pictures or anything like that, although I'm sure they're very glad it's not connected to their ID pictures. But as you all know, especially after having taught remotely, right, having their profile pictures in Brightspace is a big help, right, to getting to know their names, right? And so again, I reward them for doing that, but there's no way for me to set that up as a trigger, right? So I just do that one manually. But you can also then set up awards to happen manually, right? So I don't have too many of those manual ones because that's a lot for me to keep track of. I have a few that I think are worth kind of doing, right? But most of them I like to set up to happen automatically. So let me show you a couple of these. So these are ones, right? So this is a grammar class, right? There's a whole lot of technical vocabulary that they need to learn, right? And I've found that the students just don't study the vocabulary, right, in the class unless I kind of force it upon them, right? And so for each module, they've got a little quiz they can do, but instead of making everything worth a grade, right? The vocabulary review is just worth points, right? They just get rewarded for doing it. So it's something extra that I think they should do to practice their vocabulary, but they don't have to do it, right? Because I don't want to have a list where every week they have to do 20 different things for me, right? And so you can see right here, right? I've created a release condition for this one. If they get 50% or better on the module 1 vocabulary review, they get this award, right? And it pops up just like it did for you all the next time they log into Brightspace, right? Now, again, I've got this all tied to this idea of gamification where they're actually earning points, and then they can use those, they can kind of cash in those points throughout the semester for rewards. And that's the bigger piece of gamification, which again, if you all want to kind of talk about that later on, we can, right? But you can also just see how it's just this kind of reinforcement of positive behavior, right? You did something good, and here's a little sticker for you. Here's a little prize for you. Here's a little award for you. So let me show you real quickly how you would create one of these awards. Right?
Jay,
so
Jay, yes, if I can interrupt you, I'm going to be the voice of the chat.
Yes.
Elizabeth's also saying perhaps you're going to address this later, but what release conditions can you use and not use for the awards?
Yep, I'm going to show that in just a minute here. So I've come to the awards page. I've clicked over to course awards, right? And now I'm going to click on the add awards to course, right? It's the big blue button, right? Because whenever Brightspace wants you to pay attention to something, they make it into a big blue button, right? Okay, so, but this does something special. This goes in and basically says, here's all the awards you've ever created within Brightspace, right? Because what Brightspace does here is let you kind of pull from other courses, right? So one thing you can do is you can have awards in one class, and then you can easily kind of port them over to another class, right? Or you can create a new award, right? So I'm going to click on this create button. And I'm just going to kind of step you through the process here. So we're going to give it a name. All right, doesn't matter, but make it something kind of clear, for your purposes and also for theirs, right? And give it a description too, right? This is going to show up when the student gets the award, right? And you want to keep it pretty short because despite the fact that this looks like there's a whole lot of space, there's not a lot of space when they get the award. So if you don't keep it short, it's going to get cut off. Okay, so something pretty short just to kind of signify what the award is for, right? We're going to leave award type as badge. Janice talked a little bit about certificates. Those get a little more complicated, right? They're a little harder to set up. So we're going to stay with the badges, right? There's a whole bunch of weird settings here, right? Make this award available to all my courses. So like I said, you just saw that you can just port over from one course to another course without doing the copy and paste kind of thing in Brightspace. You can grab those badges, or you can limit it just to a specific class, right? It just depends on what I'm doing. If it's something real specific to a specific class, I'll keep it focused on that class. Otherwise, I'll leave it open because it's something I might want to use later on. Right? Expiration date. And again, remember, Brightspace is D2L is a Canadian company, so they say things like expiry date, right? You can set it to never expire, right? Or you can give it a specific date, right? Or you can get even a little more creative with this. Again, I think it just depends on what you want to do, right? For my grammar class, you saw how many awards and badges the students can get, and I figured that would be pretty cluttered, right? And they didn't really need to take those anywhere else because they're really specific to the class. So for those, I just set an expiration date of the end of the calendar year, right? So after the semester is over, all those badges that they've earned from my class will disappear because they don't hold any significance outside of the class itself, right? But if you were using this for some other reason, for those badges you all have earned for the Learn Zula class, right? And the Learn Everywhere Zula class, right? Those are set to never expire, right? Because we figured those were maybe a little more significant and maybe something you'd want to kind of, keep notice of, right? As you went along. So again, it just depends on what you want to do with those, right? Okay, all the way down here at the bottom, issuer information and name. You can just leave this as it is. It just fills in with Brightspace. Or if you want to get, if you want to make it unique, you could plug in your own name and your own email address as well. It doesn't have any impact on really anything, that you're going to be doing in Brightspace. But you've got two choices here now to create the award itself. You can either choose from, actually you've got three, right? You can choose from the existing library, right? Brightspace has a pretty limited number of built-in award designs that you can grab, and they're not bad looking. You saw that I was using some of those, right? And you can just kind of scroll through and find one that kind of matches what you're thinking of or fits a little bit with what you're thinking of, right? And so you could just choose that, right? And then there's your badge, right? You can upload a file. So if you are interested or capable with graphic design, right? You can create your own badge icons, right? And so that's what we did for Lex, right? So those are unique to us. We created those in a graphic design program and then uploaded those. Or there's some websites out there where you can get, just the same way you can get like clip art and stuff like that and free images, you can get kind of packages of pre-designed course awards as well, right? You can also do this thing, the create your own award image. This takes you into a little tool, right? I find it a little hard to work with, to be honest with you. It's not the best design. It's a little archaic, right? But you could kind of go through here and, create something and give it some text, right? So, it's not that hard to work with, but I just find it a little bit clunky to really get something to look the way I want it to look. But if you want to kind of play with that, that's another option as well, right? So lots of different things. If you're just getting started, I would say just go with that existing library, right? Because they're nice badges. They work pretty well. And then you're going to go ahead and click on save. And oh, there's my superstar. It's alphabetized, just in case you were kind of wondering. So I got a whole lot of them here. So that's the first part of the steps, right? And if you're going to award this as a manual award, if you're just going to click on people's names and award it as needed, you're done with the creation process. If you want to link it to a specific condition, a specific release condition, you need to, and this is a little confusing. It took me a while to get used to this, but you need to click on this edit properties link. Credits, I still haven't gotten a good explanation. I don't know, Janice, if you've ever gotten a good explanation about what the credits actually signify.
The way they use the credits are like XP.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but sometimes the students will get confused because they think that that might be a part of their grade.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can see up here for my class, I was doing kind of the points they could earn for it, but it doesn't get kind of compiled necessarily anywhere. Right? Okay, but if I want to create a release condition, I'm going to click on this release conditions create button. And then for those of you who have gone through that release conditions workshop or who watched that video from that workshop, this should look pretty familiar because like I said, it's the same system that we saw there. It's got the same options, right? And it's also got the same kind of limitations as well, right? So you say, what condition type do you want, right? Do you want it to happen after they submit an assignment or after they get a certain score on a rubric? Or do you want to get it because they got a certain score on a quiz, right? Or because they posted a certain number of discussion topics, right? So I'm going to do that one. And I'm going to say if they post 5 times to this discussion board, if they post 5 threads and or replies to the discussion board, they will receive this award, right? And then I would click on save. And then I'm pretty much done, right? Because I've set it up to happen automatically. I don't really have to do anything else, right? They're going to get this award as soon as they hit that 5 post or 5 reply mark, right? And they'll get a little notification.
Before you get too far, Abba did have a question in here, and it's about how to manually award the badge. For example, for visiting office hours. So if you can go back over that again.
Yep, sure. So to do the manual, right, you would come to the activities and awards page, right? And like I said, it comes by default to the class list page, right? And then you would just find the student you want to award it to. You would click on that student's name, right? And then you see up here the issue button has turned blue, right? And you can even do multiple students if you want to, right? When I didn't have them selected, that issue button was grayed out and I couldn't do it, right? But if I click on 1 or 2 students' names, I can issue them an award, right? I can select the award and I can actually do any of the awards I wanted to. So I could even manually award them one of those automated awards if I wanted to, right? And I could say that I'm not going to do this because this is live, obviously, right? And I don't want to get my students thinking they got a special award that they didn't get. And then you'll notice here it asks you to give them a criteria. So this kind of overrides that default description. And you could say, thanks for being a great student. Right. And then I would just, and it says, okay, so you've got Cleo and Megan selected, and I would click on issue, and then it's going to push that badge to them. Yeah, and like I said, that's if you're interested in kind of playing with this, that's the easiest way to do this. Create a little award, right? And then just kind of remind yourself that when a student does X, right, you're going to come back here and you're going to send them that a little award, right? It doesn't have to be connected to this big gamification system if you don't want it to, right? You can just kind of play with these as just a little, hey, thank you. And again, the research shows that these little positive mentions to the students have a pretty big impact for the amount of work it is, right? And for what it actually is, which is just a little image, right? It has a pretty big impact in their attitude towards the class and how they're doing as a student, right? And it also allows you to stay in touch with them, right? So you can also set up awards. You saw some of the release conditions. You can set up awards for students who are struggling, right? So if they get a bad grade, or if they don't turn in an assignment, you could actually even have kind of a touch point award for. It's not an award, but it's a way to say, hey, you might want to come speak to me, kind of thing. I haven't played really with that approach, right? I've used it for the positive affirmation. So that's pretty much how you would set them up. Like I said, if you're comfortable with the release conditions, if you've played with that a little bit, right, that's the most complicated part of this, is knowing how to do that, right? And the only trick there is just kind of thinking about what you want those awards to be connected to. You can do multiple conditions as well. So you can say they've got to do X, Y, and Z, right? So I had an award for the students that if they got a 75% or better on all three of the unit tests in the class, they got a special award, right? And so that went out. I just finished grading the third one today, so that just went out to a few of the students today, right? Okay, I think that's it for my demo here. Let me get back to the screen.
I don't know if now's a good time to ask, but I do. Sure. I have a question. So for discussion posts, like I have these optional discussion posts, and they're distinct, right? So I've been creating a whole new award for every single discussion, rather than, it would be nice if I could just, can you copy the award so that, you can have a discussion post award, and then you kind of sub-label it with the topic? Or do you have to recreate the award from scratch every time?
Yeah, you can't really copy an award the way you can copy like a quiz
or something.
Yeah. Because Brightspace has that kind of weird thing where some things you can copy pretty easily and other things you just can't copy at all.
Okay.
So, you would have to kind of create each one. So like you saw here, for the vocab ones, I had to create a different award for each, because of the way I wanted to do it. There's a different award for each of the modules for the vocabs, right? And I just had to keep doing the same thing over and over again with a slightly different image. Yeah, unfortunately, it'd be nice if you could kind of do a bulk copy or something. Any other other questions before kind of switch back? We are actually going to ask you to kind of do a little bit of brainstorming here, and then we're going to give you a little bit of feedback on, hey, here's maybe the best approach to take for what you're thinking about doing, right? Because some of you have probably heard me talk about that. I've often kind of hit the wall with Brightspace's release conditions, right? I keep coming up with things. Oh, I want this to happen, and then I find out that it won't do that, right? So, we have to be aware of kind of what it can do, but also what it can't do as well. Okay, so let's do this. We want you to brainstorm a little bit. We want you. Let me put this in the chat. Some of you have seen us use these or played with on your own, the Google Jamboards, right? So that link, that awards board, this one should work properly, right? Will take you to the engaged students using awards Jamboard, right? And what we want you to do here, we want you to take about 5 minutes, right? And you see the sticky notes option right here. You can colorize it. You can even make it uncolored, right? We want you to put 3 separate sticky notes on the Jamboard, right? And we want each one to describe one action or activity or behavior, right, that you think you'd like to incentivize for one of your spring classes. So what's one thing that you'd like students to do that you'd like to be able to give them an award for, right? Whether or not you know you can do it, we just want you to say, this is what I think I'd like to do, and put that on one of those sticky notes, and see if you can, each person can come up with about 3. And then we're going to take a look, we're going to talk a little bit about what would work best or what would be the best approach for some of these. So like I said, take about 5 minutes and let's see what you can do. I can see most everybody's already in there. The anonymous walrus has joined. And you can move these around if you want. It looks like if you choose that, it's not a white sticky note. It's actually a transparent sticky note. I wasn't aware of that. Stay off the phone. I had actually thought of, I'm just kind of thinking about this as I'm watching this, but the stay off the phone one kind of made me think that might be an interesting one to do. And obviously I'm pretty much all my stuff right now is remote, right? So it's kind of a moot point, right? But once we, kind of get back to classroom life, right?
I actually was about to implement it before COVID, but I found this app called Flip. That it's optional. They can sign up and it logs when they're not on during class. And so
I'll have to take a look. But I was going to say, one thing you could do is you could set up a badge. And again, this would be kind of more of the an award to remind students about the wrong behavior, right? But you could have kind of an existing award that you send out to students after class who maybe were on their phone, right? And so instead of having to retype that, email that many of us have probably typed in the past, just to say, hey, you remember, you're not supposed to be on your phone during class. You could kind of set up a little award that you could just shoot to them and say, hey, let's try to stay off the phone. Elizabeth, you're not following instructions again. I think that was Elizabeth too.
All right, I told everybody I don't feel good. I'm not tracking instructions well tonight. But I did one that's instructions. One of mine is real instructions. Okay. The thinking of awards, right here. This one. Well, whatever.
I'm going to move folks around a little bit. So let's take about 1 more minute, and then, like I said, we'll kind of offer a little bit of feedback on some of these about what might work best, or if there's another option, right? Because awards, the badges, the digital badges are nice, right? But there are other ways, again, that you can use kind of the release condition system, right? If you want to automate it, to kind of send notifications to students, right? And you all got, I think, the announcement after completing that survey that Janice sent out, right? So again, an announcement saying, hey, congratulations, nice work, is a different kind of award that you can set up for students. See, you all are like me. You're already thinking about things that the system's just not gonna quite be able to do, right? But again, you can always do the manual ones. It just kind of makes a little more work for you. The stay off the phone one, I think, is a great one, right? Obviously, that can't be triggered by anything in particular, right? But it's something you can kind of send out after class, or even during class, right? If you can kind of manage it, it's not that hard to send them out. So like the ones, with, and Janice, let me know if I'm kind of, not saying the right thing. The ones with just kind of connected to completion of an assignment, that's a real quick and easy, release condition function you can set up. They've submitted the assignment and then they get the award, right? And it could be an interesting way to do, again, especially to help students kind of remember how to submit their assignments, right? Because at least having just taught XScore 1000 with a whole bunch of freshmen who sometimes forget to finish submitting their assignments, and then they email me and ask me why they got a 0 for something that they thought they had submitted. You could set up an award to say, hey, yes, if you didn't get the award, you didn't complete the process. The scores as well. Again, you saw that with the release conditions is pretty easy. Say, on a quiz, get X, at least or greater than or equal to this score, and you get this award, right? Or on the assignments, it doesn't quite work that way. Is that right, Janice? You can't say like on an essay or something, if they get a 95 on an essay, they'll get an award, right?
It has to be tied to the grade column. Right.
Okay, that's right.
So if you have it tied to the grade column, then you can issue.
Yeah, thank you, right? Yeah, so again, with that distinction between the assignment, the submission folder, right, which is what I was thinking about, and the gradebook item that's connected to it, you can do it.
Right. And if you just wanted to award, if there was a submission, then you could do that. But if it's based on the grade, it would have to be tied to the grade item.
I was looking at the one for about students who don't wait until the last minute. I'm trying to think if there's a way you could work that out to happen automatically. I'm not sure that there is.
I don't think there's going to be something that you can do automatically. You would actually have to manually issue that. But that's a great badging idea. As a matter of fact, we've done that before, and we called it the early bird gets the worm badge.
Yeah, so the stuff with timing, Brightspace isn't able to handle that kind of criteria, right? So that kind of stuff would have to be more of a manual awarding process. Completing an assignment, right? Getting a certain score on a gradebook item or on a quiz, completing a certain number of discussions, right? Those all work pretty nicely. Reading feedback, yeah, I don't think you can do.
Yeah, and I think that would have to be manually issued.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, you can do it for, this is what so I wanted to double check. You can do it for when they get feedback for an assignment, but not when they've actually taken a look at it. And I know that's one of those things that a lot of us kind of wish there was kind of an easier way to kind of keep track of, which is, did they actually take a look at this feedback that I took all this time to post for them? Looks like some great ideas there. Good mixture of what could be done manually and then automatically. Thinking awards earned, eventually being grade earned to give students some autonomy. Now you can do it. You can actually award an award when the student gets other awards, if that makes sense, right? Or you can make having gotten one award part of a requirement for another award. So like for my grammar class, right? I didn't want them to get to level 8 if they hadn't gotten to level 6, right? Even though technically they could have, just in the way I had to kind of set up. So they had to first get level 6 or something, you know, so you can't actually tie that. You can't tie it back automatically to the grade book item, right? But you could then go manually and kind of say, okay, this student's gotten this kind of big award, so I'm going to give them these points or this score in the gradebook item. Yeah, and Elizabeth was asking about the Lex completion, right? Yeah, so that was, you know, for each of those modules you created for Lex, you got an award, but then once you hit all 8, you got a special award, the completion award, right? That kind of triggered for us then. And again, one thing you can think about with these awards, right? It's not just for it's great for the students, right? And the research shows that staying in touch with students like this way, the positive reinforcement is all beneficial to the students. It's also a good way to kind of keep things organized, right? As well, you know, for yourself, right? You can kind of say, okay, the student's gotten this far along or done these many things. All right, some great ideas here. I think I'm going to hand things back over. We've got about 10 minutes left, and Janice has some great kind of tips for moving forward with awards. So I'm going to stop sharing here and let her take back the screen.
Okay. All right, and I think you all see my browser window now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and one thing that you may see when you're trying to create the awards is this idea about Badger and whether or not the students can download their badges or their awards to Badger. And so if you enable that, then yes, they can. So this is actually my Badger backpack, and I have a couple of awards here. And so this would be a way that they could actually share it outside of Brightspace. So if I clicked on this share, then I'd get some information as to what how I want to share it out, and I could do that. So that's what the Badger piece is. All right, and so as we try to wrap this up, some questions to consider as we were talking about. What are they going to earn the badges for? Which badges are going to be predictable and which ones are not? How often will they earn the badges? How much is too much? And then why should they care about the badges that you're issuing to them? Some design tips. Link the badge requirements to your course goals. Decide if your badges should be issued based on a skill or knowledge, or are they going to be expected or unexpected? Some effective practices. Number 1, design your awards around a theme. So just like we had the Lex course and we had a whole theme going and the badges fit that theme, that's an effective practice as well. You don't have to do that, but it's an effective practice. Number 2, don't over badge. So avoid giving them a badge for everything. Effective practice number 3, avoid 0 challenge badges. So if there are too many easily earned badges, then that is not effective. I do agree that you should have some easily earned badges. So for example, maybe a badge for a student just for being able to get into the course, for example. But if you have too many of those easily earned badges, then you're not going to be effective. Number 4, meaningless badges. So does this badge have some meaning or relevance? Do you have difficulty describing what the badge represents? If you do, then maybe you don't want to issue it. Practice number 5, don't be redundant. So will giving a badge to a student, for example, for earning an A, add new or additional value? Like I said, don't be redundant. Effective practice number 6, we definitely want to always reduce our workload. So if you can automate the issuing of the badges, then that's going to be less work for you. So automate where you can. And as we've mentioned during this presentation, that there are going to be some places where you can't automate it. It's going to have to be a manually issued badge, which is fine, but just automate as many as you can. Effective practice number 7, definitely explain to the students how the badges are working, how they're going to earn the badges, and then how they can display those badges. I also have some potential pitfalls. Number 1, avoid superficial engagement. So use more intrinsic motivators than extrinsic motivators. Potential pitfall number 2, avoid unintended consequences. For example, like the Cobra effect. And if you're not familiar with that, I think it was in India, they were offering a bounty for people if you brought in a dead cobra, and some enterprising individuals started breeding the cobras and bringing them in for the bounty, and then they stopped paying the bounty. So now these enterprising individuals have too many cobras, so they released them back, and now you have the original problem that you started off with. So avoid unintended consequences. Potential pitfall number 3, avoid rewarding the wrong behaviors. So whatever your reward structure is, it shouldn't undermine whatever your goal is. Potential pitfall number 4, avoid rewards that your students aren't going to find valuable. All right. And I want to remind you about the cat food blog. I always like to end with this. I'm pretty sure everybody here is subscribed, but if you're not, by all means subscribe. You'll find timely Brightspace tips and other useful information or helpful information by those of us in CAT. And as we wrap things up for today, I'd like you to go ahead and type in the chat your biggest takeaway, your number 1 takeaway for today in the chat. And there's a question here, how did I know about cobras? Yeah, right. Anybody with the number 1 takeaway? We're typing. All right, Alba says, don't give excessive badges. We're never too old to be motivated by stickers and badges. Be careful of over-badging, linking the award to the learning objective, not just the busy activity. To be careful and not use too many badges and awards, not too many 0 of the easily won badges, the mechanics of setting up awards, make sure they meet your learning objectives. Awards is a good way to motivate students, going to use them to encourage doing work ahead of time for better learning. Excellent. All right. And do we have any questions?
I was just going to say real quickly, I'm still thinking about this idea of giving an award to students for turning in work kind of ahead of time in a timely manner as opposed to at the last minute, because I've been struggling with that a lot this semester. And I think, it would take it's a little manual, but if you had an award that went out to the students for submitting something, and then you basically turned off that award or turned off that criterion after a certain point, then technically only the students who got it up to that point, who turned it in beforehand, would get that award. So I don't know if that would be more or less work than just awarding it manually as the assignments come in. But like I said, I've had students who every single test, the entire class waited until, the test was due at 9 o'clock Sunday night, and the entire class waited until at least 7 o'clock Sunday night to take the test, and they had all weekend to do it. So I don't know.
All right. Any other questions as we wrap up? All right. I do want to remind you that you will be getting an email with an evaluation. And so we ask that you fill that out. We do value your feedback, and we do look to that to help us as we move forward. And there is an awards badge for this particular Lex Advance. This one is tied to your participation in this workshop, but you also have to have completed that gamification learning challenge. So in my email confirmation and reminder, there was a link to that. So if you haven't completed that, you're going to need to complete that as well in order to get your badge for this workshop. And as usual, I like to give you some confetti. Congratulations. All right. I am going to stop sharing.